Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well. In this video, I want to introduce you to the concept of creating AI agents using Poly. So Poly has a service which will show you how to do that today, and then we'll go ahead and use that service as an API for this demo. In the next demo, we'll go ahead and actually take this plugin that we generate, and we'll go ahead and install it within OpenAI's ChatGPT UI. So the first thing you want to do when generating a plugin is identify which functions you want to use as part of that plugin. Now the nice thing about Poly is you can address these functions using IDs. So whenever you create a new function, most likely it's going to be server functions, but it can be API functions as well. You'll get an ID assigned to that operation, that function. And so you can then basically grab those IDs and then package them together and build a plugin. And I'll show you that today. So here we have the function that we created in our last demo. So I'll go ahead and just look at its details. And one best practice is to really just make sure that the description makes sense, that it's very comprehensive, that it explains what this function does, and then that the argument descriptions are also very comprehensive. It's a best practice to include examples when you have a string that needs to be formatted a certain way, etc. So in my case here, I'm happy with it. I'm going to go ahead and just build a plugin with just this one function for the sake of this demo. To do so, we have an operation here, which is post/plugins, where you basically get to specify some metadata about the plugin, and then you get to specify an array of function IDs that you want to package in this plugin. So we'll go ahead and hit send here. And what happens here is that Poly basically grabs and packages together information about all these functions and hosts that information at a specific plugin URL. And this is what allows it to basically serve the information to the OpenAI model that is using this plugin information to be able to make runtime decisions about which functions to use and how to structure those arguments. These functions can be custom functions, server functions, or they could also be API functions. And it doesn't matter. Poly will basically make it so that this AI model can use n number of systems, each with their own different APIs, authentication models. Poly basically normalizes this down to a single endpoint for OpenAI to be able to use these operations. And I want to stress this point because this is what makes it possible to basically have a single interface against many different backend systems, in some cases where those endpoints are actually orchestrations or transformations to make these functions suitable for the AI usage. So today, we'll go ahead and just explore this one endpoint down here, which is the API interface to that model. And in the next video, like I mentioned, we'll go ahead and see the UI interface that OpenAI provides. So we'll go ahead and copy this over here. And then you'll see that in the subdomain, you actually have the slug plus a environment generated ID. And this is what allows us to have n number of models across n number of functions, across n number of customers. So this is how we basically achieve a multi-tenancy for the plugin models. So I'll go ahead and add /conversations, and then we'll add a conversation ID, and I'll just do convo1. This is just a string that you can specify. Most likely you want to use some kind of GUID generation, etc. to assign an ID. And then here I can ask it a question like, hello, can you help me order a t-shirt? And we can see that it comes back with a response and it says, of course, I'd be happy to help you with that. I need the following information. And this information it's asking for is a one-to-one corollary to the arguments that custom function identified as the probable function to use requires. And that's based off the information that's coming from our Open API specification. Now I'd like to go ahead and order the actual t-shirt, so I can then respond back and say something like, great, let's send it to 123 Fake Street, and we're going to go ahead and put Colorado 805.16, make it addressable to Darko, and put a big red heart in the middle of the t-shirt. So we'll go ahead and fire this back. Great, and you can see the content that was sent to it. You can see the response we got back from it, and then you could see that it was a function that was used, and lastly you can see the content that is generated for the purposes of the AI agent to use to kind of represent to the user. So this is its generated content that should be represented to the user. Now the beauty here is this thing speaks every language in the world, so you can have these dialogues in any human language that you prefer, and then it's not bound to the functions, so you can ask it questions that are generic that don't have to do with the specific API endpoints at all. So you can ask it for ideas on what kind of t-shirts you would do if you're trying to go to a specific event, etc. So a lot of power here. Now a couple of additional things to note is you can actually do a get on this endpoint, so you can actually see the full conversation. So you can see that at this time we asked it for a t-shirt, it said it can help, we said hey great, let's do it here. You can see the function call that was used, you can see the response of the function, so you get a lot of information here, and you get to basically then have a history of what the user said and then what the assistant responded. And so there's really a lot of power here for you to basically then represent this information to your users and maintain a history and allow for cross-modal conversations that maybe start in a text message and then continue in your mobile app. You have full power of that. Well, with that, thank you for watching the video, and in the next video I'll go ahead and show you how we can take this plugin and use it in the ChatGPT UI.